The recent abandonment and collapse of Starfield has been described as one of gaming's biggest flops in recent memory. How does a fall off this steep even happen? And what's it actually like to play Starfield 2 years later? Because it might not be quite what you expect. For a game hyped as Bethesda's next great RPG, Skyrim in space, to die a brutal death in under 2 bloody years, something must have seriously gone wrong. Well, at first, Starfield boomed with more than 1 million players across all platforms in September 2023, but by January 2024, Steam daily peaks dropped to just 5,300 players, which is less than Skyrim, and in less than 6 months, the game went from Bethesda's biggest launch ever to what my bed is like every night, a complete ghost town. But even worse, 2 years later, Bethesda have seemingly already moved on, with no mention of future updates or expansions. So what the hell happened? Well, at launch, Bethesda gave us a massive universe to explore, but it came at the cost of clunky gameplay, horrible gormless freaks, and some seriously outdated mechanics. As the days and months rolled by, players simply got bored, but Bethesda didn't help things and made their next big mistake, waiting far too damn long to fix things. Players wanted fixes, actual maps, improvement to the AI yesterday, and with many games competing for your attention, the massive drop-off isn't really too surprising. However, that was 2 years ago now, and a lot has changed since then. Has Starfield finally improved in ways that matter? Let's take a full, honest look with no bias. Believe it or not, there are videos across YouTube saying the game is actually good now, and one common reason I found was the use of mods. And as much as I do understand why, I'd rather keep this video fair so mods will not be part of the conversation. So let's start with its most controversial and biggest addition to Starfield, the Shattered Space DLC. This was their chance to put all the wrongs right, with a new compelling story and a handcrafted planet worth exploring. Yes, none of the generated bollocks. And one thing I will admit, which other YouTubers may or may not too, is when a new DLC or game comes out and you don't get an early key to it, it is easy to rush things too fast just to get your video up in time. But taking my time with Shattered Space, it's definitely not perfect, but there are things you really should know. First, the new added handcrafted planet, which I ain't pronouncing the name of as I'll sound like a right knobhead, really does make a difference, and you can certainly tell. And to me, I think it does have a lot of personality and its own unique feel, which I found a great improvement over the AI generated slop you'll find on countless other planets. The combat is also way more intense when compared to the base game, thanks to the jetpack enemies along with others that can teleport, making things a little bit more challenging, which isn't a bad thing, and it does add some variety, although the AI is still pretty damn dumb, so don't expect any improvements there. I just found it nice coming across different types of enemies for once, that don't just feel like copy and paste. Yes, the story definitely learns from the mistakes made in the main game, by not just spamming the same god to hell temple missions with the hope you have early signs of dementia, but the writing does need some serious work, and it does feel a little phoned in at times, but I did personally enjoy it more than the main story. And sure, some of you might be thinking, well, that's not saying much, and you're probably right, but it's still worth mentioning. Shattered Space is no masterpiece, as I found it short, focused, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. More importantly, it felt like this could have been the beginning of something better, a new direction, and maybe a chance to turn things around. With the major DLC out the way, let's talk about one of the biggest gameplay changes that actually improves exploration quite a bit, the newly added land vehicle. Before, it was Mario on Crack Simulator, running and jumping about constantly, which made roaming planets feel incredibly boring and repetitive. Now be warned, like other aspects in this game, it can be buggy. Christ, bloody Theo Von over here. But I personally think this does help make exploration feel a lot less stale and far more enjoyable. And it did have me wondering, would people have slammed the exploration as hard if this was in the game at launch? Maybe not, but just how much has exploration really really improved. Revisiting it again made me realise a few things. First, I love the fact there are so many places to visit. I do find it quite amazing. Exploring countless planets in a game is something I get wet dreams over not long ago, and visiting the main planets, honestly, they do feel somewhat alive. There's lots of places to see, people to meet, and they don't feel like endless wastelands. The fact that we finally, and I mean finally, have an actual map is actually a game changer. It's crazy this wasn't here from the start, and it massively helps new and returning players actually figure out where the hell they're going. If you can ignore the odd frog freak that makes you cack your pants, or the loading screens that pop up when entering every single building, the core planets can actually be fun to explore, and the amount of side quests is kind of overwhelming, but in the best way possible, and it can keep you busy for hours if you want to be. But the more you play, the more it becomes clear having thousands of planets isn't always a good thing, and it really does depend on what kind of player you are. Diving into countless menu screens to travel to different galaxies, I still find tedious even with an SSD. You do get used to it, but if you're playing on a standard hard drive, you're going to be looking at this god to hell whirly-gig more than the actual game. And I still get pissed off when I forget what god to flip planet belongs in each galaxy, which then leads to wasting about 20 minutes of my life trying to find it. And hopefully I'm not the only one who does that. But once you finally make your way out of the menus and back into the game, I actually really enjoy the ship combat. Maybe I'm in the minority, but there's something satisfying about it. And I love how enemies can just ambush you out of nowhere, it keeps you on your toes, and boarding enemy ships is a weird fetish I seem to never get bored of. But I still think it sucks that you can't manually land on planets. It breaks immersion, seeing the same damn hidden loading screen every time. But you could also argue, who's really going to land manually more than once? Most of us would just fast travel eventually anyway. But still, for a game this ambitious, the option should be there. It's a detail that matters, especially when immersion is half of the appeal. And once you do touch down on other planets, I've got to be honest, it's a real shame that 90% of them have no character whatsoever. The generated planets really show, and it feels like they're copy and pasting the same terrain, hoping no one notices. And I was sort of hoping they could improve this over time with updates, but this hasn't happened sadly. Thankfully, the main ones are good enough to keep you hooked. Silly game mechanics like not being able to run if you picked up too much gear still exists, or when your companion acts like a complete brain-dead bellend. Yes, the AI still sucks, but the simple fix is ditching the utter goblin on your ship and going solo.
You've really pissed me off.
As they give the term spastic all new meaning. As for combat, the shooting is still kind of average, and it hasn't really been touched since launch. It's alright, but it does feel a little clunky and lackluster. The way enemies eat bullets can also lead to some buggy moments, which really isn't ideal, but the shooting really isn't too bad, and it doesn't hold the game back too much, mainly due to the sheer amount of different weapons to choose from, which does give the gameplay some variety. I think what's far worse is the stealth. It's still utterly abysmal, borderline broken. Honestly, it feels like a feature that should have been cut altogether. It's so unbalanced, it's laughable, and this won't be a deal breaker for most players, but just be aware that enemies can either hear a dickweed from about a mile away, or won't see your dumbass standing right in front of them. You're best off ditching stealth altogether. So with all that said, even with the new additions, the new DLC, and a handful of updates, is Starfield actually a better game now and worth your time? Honestly, it depends massively on the type of player you are. There is fun to be had, a space RPG is literally my dream genre, and some aspects are done incredibly well. The buggy genuinely improves exploration, the ship combat is actually really enjoyable, and while Shattered Space isn't perfect, it could have been the start of something bigger going forward. Where the experience still massively lets itself down is the outdated mechanics, the soulless, repetitive main story missions, and the lack of quality over quantity. The AI still needs a complete revamp, the main story deserves a proper expansion, and the endless loading screens need sorting, and we desperately need more handcrafted planets. For me, Starfield is a fun experience worth playing if you watch videos like this and know what to expect. But what I personally find most disappointing disappointing is how Bethesda have quietly moved on already. No talk of future expansions, no long-term roadmap, absolutely zilch. That said, if you're on PC, Starfield is almost certainly worth your time, as mods like Survival and Constellation completely transform the experience, and honestly, they show what the game could have been. Like the video if you want me to cover these mods in more detail. And if you're thinking of grabbing it for yourself, don't pay silly prices. I use Instant Gaming when buying my games, and they've actually got it on sale right now, along with big discounts on some of the newest and trending games like Dune, Rematch, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and more. I'll leave a link down below so you can check it out for yourself. And if you found this bloody interesting, wait till you see what happened with Mafia 3 and whether it's finally worth playing now. Click the video on screen and find out.